welcome to this, well, I guess second after lunch session of this year Emerge. Our topic is cyber order, and we'll have four, I believe, great presentations. We'll have two presenters presenting here from the conference hall, and then two presentations online. My name is Luka Glušić. I'm Assistant Director and Research Fellow here at the Institute for Philosophy and Social Theory. And without further ado, I will yield the floor to our first presenter, Srđan Korać, who is Senior Research Fellow at the Institute for Political Studies in Belgrade, and also former Director of the Institute of International Politics and Economics. And Srđan's presentation is entitled "Drone is Scrutinizing You, the Utilization of Drone Technology for Performance Control on the Battlefield." Srđan, please, the floor is yours. Samo bude zeleno, ja?
Now?
Okay, thank you, Luka. Now this long subtitle even looks longer on the big screen. I see it now. But okay, let me kick off my presentation with a question to all of you. Have you ever stepped into the realm of moral imagination by asking yourself, would I or could I kill a human being if I were a soldier in war? Well, judging by action and film and war films, it's easy peasy. Yes, especially if you fight side by side with Rambo and if you have enough ammunition. But actually, okay. But the reality of land combat is quite different. Every sane soldier resists to kill another human being in close combat. When I say close combat, it means if the other enemy soldier is in his sight, if he can see other human being. And there are two very influential studies. One done in 1947 by Samuel Marshall. He was a military historian, Man Against Fire. And the other one was published in 50 years later by Dave Grossman from the perspective of military psychology. And both of these studies, are very well empirically based. And the key findings are that soldiers kill only when they fear imminent threat of sanctions of their superior, if they fear condemnation from their own comrades in arms from unit, actually there has been a widespread phenomenon of misfiring and non-firing at enemy soldiers, so avoiding aiming at enemy soldiers. And it is very well evidenced in First and Second World War. And another fact about reality of land combat is that the longer the distance between soldier and his human target, the lower level of empathic connection. So, but okay. But in the last 2 or 3 decades, Western militaries were passed through the change of paradigm, organizational paradigm, and now there are 3 key organizational principles that are embedded, and they actually took from the corporate sector, and those are effectiveness, efficiency, and results-oriented performance. And even the Wall Street traders teach now even US Marines commanders how to make decisions, in hectic situations in rapidly changing environment. All Western militaries are now fully professionalized, but soldiers are now treated as employees, mere employees, and as vulnerable employees because of this empathic connection. Now it's really it's evident now that soldiers can be inefficient due to stress and traumatization they pass through on the front line. So still, having in mind all that advanced technologies that now are used or utilized for military purposes, still the major dilemma of the command and control system is how to scrutinize efficiently the performance of ground troops in a combat mission. And my claim or my departing thesis in this research is that the case of utilization of drone technology in ongoing war in Ukraine actually points out to the potential of new inverted role of military drones, and that is permanent surveillance of one's own soldiers to scrutinize their combat efficiency in the context of desired operational objectives. And I based my research on abundance of video materials, recordings of what's going on the battlefield. And you have really, now it's almost 10 months of war. So you have literally thousands of video clips from the battlefield, which are recorded by drones, by military drones. And my analysis was focused on what material functional properties of drone facilitate government practices of control of soldiers, or in particular their bodies, what they do with their bodies. So, maybe I don't know how to use. So these are two main types of drones utilized in war in Ukraine. On the left side, it's an unmanned aerial vehicle. And on the right side is a commercial drone that you can own and you can fly it. And those commercial drones are even in largest use. I mean, they're the most used in Ukraine in missions of surveillance, reconnaissance, and patrolling. Okay, so what exactly now you can see through the camera positioned on drone? This is so-called guide's eye perspective. So now you can literally watch, thousands and thousands of hours that show, those perspective above the battlefield. So now you can see, for instance, there was a battle, and I think a tank was hit, and so you see soldiers jumping off, they run to the forest, etc., etc. So it's really like in film now. It's so hyper realistic. So, and that is the first genre of video imagery that you can find on YouTube channels. But if you zoom in, you get into the, let's say, second genre, and those are videos that show trench fighting. In this particular video, 8 minutes long video, you can see 3 soldiers from one side that's trying to catch one soldier who happened to stay in this trench from the opposite side, and unfortunately they killed him, and you can see it in this video on YouTube channel. So if you zoom in further, you can get into another genre of videos that are aimed at, because those commercial drones were adapted for military purpose, and they can throw, I think, 2 or 3 or 4 hand grenades. So another genre is, dropping hand grenades on enemy soldiers, and there is a scenery of 2 enemy soldiers that was hit. They were hit by grenades, and one, because I think the first grenade hit some kind, probably of box ammunition. Mm-hmm. So this soldier, caught in fire. But if you further zoom in, so this is video imagery of commercial drone. I think they can fly up to maybe 200-300 meters. So drones hovering above the combat position, combat post, and if you zoom in enough, you can almost see the facial expression of the soldier, and you can see, you can see his personal arms. In what state is he at that moment? So okay. So in my view, drone technology and advances in video technology taken together socially and politically constitute drone as a new apparatus of domination. Yes, my research comes from the field of critical war studies, to be clear. So now you have continual highly mobile and out of sight control over ground troops, and which really makes double repression of combatants who are already under stress, because they are under perpetual control, not only by their own command, but as well by the drones of their enemy. And I think that is another my thesis, that drones as agents of seeing actually changed the ontological status of soldiers, because soldiers have always been agents of fighting, and now they're primary objects of seeing. Because I think it's not in light of this evidence, of this YouTube online imagery, it seems that it's not any more important how to fight, but how it is seen that you're fighting. And because of short time, so in my view, there are at least 2 implications for military profession. Now, the extreme nature of war experience is completely, exposed to the public. So you can see how soldiers are getting injured, maimed, killed in detail. And as well, there are several videos of that can be, that can be treated as a public humiliation of soldiers. For instance, there is a video of soldier getting hit by hand grenades from drone that was hovering above him, who was having a poo, which is not immediately clear at the beginning, but when they fell, when he rolled over, And I think that that clip was viewed by, let's say, several hundred thousands YouTube users. Okay, well, I think I'm going to stop now. Okay, thank you very much, and sorry for this inconvenience with remote control.
Thank you very much, Susan. Speaking of technology, thank you so much for really shedding the new light on this. Now we can call it even extreme usage of drones in the war theater in Ukraine, and especially with such a public exposure of drone usage in Ukraine. I do have quite a few questions that because your presentation was so thought-provoking, but we'll leave that to a Q&A. Thank you so much. Now we move on to our second presentation, to be delivered by Ivona Živković and Andrea Nikolić. Ivona works as a teaching assistant at the Faculty of Organizational Sciences at the University of Belgrade, and Andrea Nikolić teaches at the University Business Law at the University of Belgrade. She's also pursuing her PhD in private international law. This research was conducted together with George Krivokapić, associate professor of the ICT law at the Faculty of Organizational Sciences. The title of presentation is Paying the Ransom Ethical, the Problem of Ransomware Attacks. And now I will give the floor to our presenters with a note. The presentation should last ideally 12 minutes, and I will give you a note, so to say, at once you pass 10 minutes. Please, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you so much. My name is Andrea Nikolić, and along with my colleague Ivona Živković, we'll present our research on the topic, is paying the ransom ethical? And I really need to say that it is really a shame that we are not there and to present it live. But right now I'm at Kopaonik, and I was there with George, also presenting another paper on ransomware. So it is really like a wide topic that raised many issues and many questions. So in this paper, we tackled only one. As you can see in the slide, the prediction says that one of the most and the highest risk in 2023 will be the cybersecurity and data security. It is even higher risk than macroeconomic and geopolitical uncertainty, AI, etc. I think that we just need to, let's say, define the ransomware. And it is the malicious software on computer systems, networks, and servers that basically blocks the victim's data. The hackers no longer need to steal the data and to sell the data. Now they're just threatened to do so. And then they simply log the data and then ask for a compensation, ask for a payment to be made. And typically that payment is requested through a digital currency in exchange of that decryption key that will actually give you re-access to your data. And ransomware have exploded in the past 5 to 7 years. That is especially because of that availability of anonymous cryptocurrency payments. And also what I need to highlight is that in the past, the ransomware attackers were targeting individuals or small businesses with, let's say, inadequate cybersecurity protections. So nowadays situation has changed, and we can see that the ransomware attackers are targeting every industry, including the even higher, highly regulated industries such as government, the healthcare, and this problem affects many organizations, whether they are large or small. I would just like to briefly say that there is no exception in the region. And Ivona, can you please change the slide? Okay, so there are many cases in the region. every country, I mean, Bosnia, North Macedonia, Montenegro, Albania, and Serbia. And those cases and those ransomware cases affected and actually has a consequence, a different kind of damages. I will just name one example, and that is the case of Serbia and the Serbian Geodetic Authority, which is responsible for registration of the rights to real estate. And it was hit by a ransomware attack in June this year. Basically, that attack prevented access to the regular services, disabling like many citizens to change the real estate ownership and to take their right to do that. So you can just imagine how many people were traveled to Serbia in order to sell their apartment. They needed to book a hotel to stay for an additional couple of days, etc. So, but that is just one of the type of damages that can occur. I will also, I would like to name another example, and that is the example of the Universal Health Services that happened in 2020. And it was estimated that the damage was around 67 million. That attack lasted for a month, and it impacted over 90,000 employees and 3.5 million patients. And it also resulted in a death of one patient. So as you can see, there is really like a big range of the damages that can occur. And Ivona, please, can you go to the slide number 15, please? Okay, thank you. So as you can see, there is 3 categories in which we can divide the losses. One of them is the business interruption, and the other one is the third-party claims, and the third one is the incident response costs. So the incident response costs can include a ransomware payment as well, the ransom, but it also includes the expert assistance, the IT recovery, legal and communication perspectives. We have the business discontinuity costs that include a range of operational costs like loss of customers, loss of reputation, data loss, but also we have a third-party claims, which vary from data breach to some other damages that were suffered by third parties. And then we have a dilemma, let's say. So please, next slide. I'm sorry. Thank you. So basically, when the ransom occurred, the main dilemma is whether to pay the ransom or not. And we also need to have in mind that it could be illegal to do so. So the prerequisite is whether it is legal or not, because in some countries it is already regulated and it is not allowed to pay the ransom. And also that tackles the ethical issues as well. But also, so we have that dilemma whether to pay the ransom or whether to try to recover the system by our own. But also what is I think important to highlight is that ransom payment, as we see, is only one of the costs that victims may face. And also, even if the victim pays ransom, like no one guarantees that they're gonna get the data back, and that they could mitigate all the possible costs by paying the ransom. So Ivona, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Andrea. So Andrea made, I would say, a pretty good introduction to what is the focal point of this paper. And that's basically, just a second. Okay. The main question is how the potential decision will affect on the business continuity, the damage mitigation, full compliance, and the customer's interest and the reputation of our business or our company. But the main ethical dilemma, which is what we wanted to answer in this paper, is it really ethical to pay the ransom? And in many situations, when it comes to the consequences of our decisions, we tend to look only two sides of this problem. From business point of view, we first consider economics and legal effects or the consequences of our actions. But equally important, or maybe more important, are the ethical consequences or ethical considerations of this question. Is it ethical to pay the ransom? Andrea mentioned these situations where we have not more, but we have some situations where the victims of the attacks are the hospitals or the health institutions. The case like that happened like a few months ago in Australia, where many lives or thousands of patients' lives were at risk, and their medical records or diagnoses were basically locked because of the ransomware attack. In these situations where hundreds of lives depends of our decision, and when we need to make a decision as quick as possible because we do have human lives at stake, here applying some of these main ethical approaches, it's not very easy. In many situations, we would probably choose utilitarian approach because in situations like this, when we have human lives at stake, we can say, okay, we will use principle of utility, we will save as many lives as we can, and we will make greatest happiness for the greatest people. But where we are facing the problem is when we come to trying to make the decision from deontological point of view. But we think that the main challenge for us would be in this paper would be to explain business decisions in some situations from both perspectives, from, like I said, the deontological and utilitarian point of view. Basically, the leading idea will be to provide insight into different decisions that company could make, like I mentioned earlier, bearing in mind these two different ethical school of thoughts. At the end, we will deal with ethics of duty, or our duty to notify relevant institutions, stakeholders, in a case of ransomware attack. I think that we fitted in the...
Okay, and I just wanted actually to add one more thing. The existence of the cybersecurity insurance, and this is one of the recommendations to have cyber security policies, the internal policies that are developed well, and also to have the full cybersecurity insurance. But the existence of the cybersecurity insurance and the ransomware insurance does not help winning the battle against ransomware attackers, because transferring the payment obligation from a victim to an insurance company does not change anything from that perspective of the attacker, who will, be paid anyhow. And then also, I think it's important to highlight that it's like contracting with a third party for providing a legal guarantee for paying off something that is illegal. So there are many more ethical dilemmas, but we just tackled some of them.
Thank you so much, Ivona and Andrea. And thank you for bringing this issue to our attention. As we're all aware that the entire region, particularly Serbia, was so to say, or especially public authorities, were victims of ransomware attacks in the last few years, without any real response, or at least public response from the public authority, which we have again witnessed the lack of accountability in our public administration. Your presentation really brought some interesting questions, and but again, I will leave them to Q&A. And now, thank you so much. Now I'm just looking if our third presenter is with us online. Now we'll move on to our fourth presentation, our last presentation, but certainly not the least. We have Slađana Ćurčić from the Institute of European Studies here in Belgrade, also a PhD student at the Faculty of Security Studies at the University of Belgrade. Her presentation is entitled Cybersecurity Culture from the Perspective of Social Cognitive Theory, a case study of the COVID-19 pandemic. Slađana, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Luca. First of all, I hope that we will work. Let's check. Great. So as Luca said, I'm going to talk about cybersecurity culture, as you can see from this presentation. And in introductory part, I would say something about aim, research question, and methodology. First of all, the aim of this paper was to examine the relevance of the model of reciprocal determinism model of security culture derived from social cognitive theory in cybersecurity culture research using the case of the COVID-19 pandemic, specifically the increase of vulnerability to cyber threats during the pandemic and the consequent expansion of research of cybersecurity was the basic incentive to explore how much is recognized the prevention potential of cybersecurity culture in the context of pandemic, which models are mostly used, and whether they're consistent with this model of reciprocal determinism. And hereafter, I will use the abbreviation RD model, so you will know that it was related to reciprocal determinism. So in the methodological sense, the paper is based on academic literature review, respectively the content analysis of relevant research. And I will proceed with the meaning of operationalization of the cybersecurity culture concept. But first of all, I would like to say something about security culture in general. And I will mention probably the most simple definition of such a complex concept. So it says that this construct reflects a proactive stance to improving security and reflects the way people think and or behave in relation to security. Of course, changes of security culture concept and its development are actually conditioned by the changes in security reality. In this sense, Chernobyl nuclear disaster, terrorist attack on the USA, development of information technologies, but also pandemics of infectious diseases are events and processes which can be seen as important milestones in development of the cyber security culture, both as concept and as a practice. And therefore, due to variety and severity of threats in the cybersphere, cybersecurity culture concept is gaining more and more importance. When it comes to the operationalization of the cybersecurity culture concept, of course, there are some disputed questions like whether cybersecurity culture concept is an ill-defined problem, what is the difference between information and cybersecurity culture, and some general criticism regarding the lack of research focusing on measuring cybersecurity culture. So in the understanding of cybersecurity culture concept, some authors adheres to Shane's model of organizational culture, and they argue that cybersecurity culture consists of several layers, artifacts, adopted values, and tacit assumptions. And actually, these authors are talking about cybersecurity culture as subcomponent of organizational culture, but they remind us that cybersecurity extends beyond the organizational boundaries. Also, other authors also rely on this Shane's model, and they add knowledge as a fourth level. Also, there are other similar definitions or conceptualizations of cybersecurity culture. It is an interesting attempt to define cybersecurity culture from the perspective of strategic culture. And you can see the exact definition of the meaning of cybersecurity culture from this perspective. And actually, this author starts from the broader framework of the changing concept of security and focuses on cultivating cybersecurity culture on a global level through multi-leveled collaboration. Of course, there are other similar operationalizations of this concept, but when we return to the previously mentioned the difficulties, what we can say is that in line with the fact that cybersecurity is a broader concept than the information security, because it includes not only the protection of information resources, but also of other assets, of course, the individuals. The same can be said for the relation between information and cybersecurity culture. So the human factor is actually the crucial in the difference between cyber and information security culture. Then I would like to say something about reciprocal determinism model of security culture. So social cognitive theory uses a triadic model of consisting of personal, behavioral, and environmental determinants, all of which interact with each other in order to shape human behavior. So this paper concretely relies on this RD model derived from social cognitive theory. And you can see those main elements or aspects: psychological, situational, and behavioral. Actually, and specifically, the RD model of security culture contains these three elements: individual or psychological, because it encompasses internal psychological factors like attitudes and perceptions; then behavioral element, which means observable safety-related behavior; and in the end, organizational element, or objective situational features. So the core of the model is the fact that people are not deterministically controlled by their environments, nor entirely self-determining. Instead, they exist in a state of reciprocal determinism with their environments, so whereby they and their environments influence one another in a dynamic interplay. So now let's say something about COVID-19. So why COVID-19 pandemic appears to be an adequate case for cybersecurity culture research. As we know, as an unprecedented threat, this pandemic really dramatically affected how societies operate, remote working and learning, and transformation of life in general, open space for different cybersecurity challenges. And specifically, cyber criminals use the chance to exploit vulnerabilities of individuals, organizations, and systems during this crisis. Here you can see some statistics. So statistics also show the increase of these cyber threats during the pandemic. So respectively, malicious domains, phishing, espionage, distributed denial of service attacks, malware, hacking online sessions. And unfortunately, my institute was a victim of one hacking online session. We had a situation of disrupting online conference and sharing some inappropriate materials. So we had to use upgraded version of Zoom in order to avoid such situation in the future. And I would say that somehow we increased our cybersecurity awareness and improved our cybersecurity culture. Also, the most common targets of these cyber threats during the pandemic were health sector, education sector, critical infrastructures, financial services, also government agencies, and of course, individuals. When it comes to some financial costs, there are some projections that say that cybercrime will cost the world about $10.5 trillion annually by 2025, up from 3 trillion in 2015. And here are the results of the analysis, or content analysis. And as you can see, I found one model of cybersecurity culture related to COVID-19, which is, I would say, partially related, or it is partially based on this RD model. So I reorganized these indicators according to three main elements of the RD model. And as you can see, almost the same group of authors use the same cybersecurity culture model in different contexts. Here we can see remote industries or contexts, whatever. We can see remote working, critical infrastructures, healthcare, academia, or education sector and energy sector, of course. But I also want to mention that besides this table, I found also other similar cybersecurity culture models, which are directly and indirectly based on the RD model, but not specifically related to COVID-19 pandemic, because the pandemic is just mentioned 1 or 2 times just as a condition that worsened cybersecurity. So that models didn't match my goal absolutely. And the general conclusion is actually that there is no directly COVID-19 related cybersecurity culture model, which is at the same time directly based on the RD model of security culture. Of course, there has been a lot of research on cybersecurity and cyber threats in general in the context of the pandemic as a crisis. So it remains to be seen, will this RD model of security culture gain more importance for cybersecurity culture research in the future, in the crisis like this? And actually the question would be, could this triad offered by this model be one of the most appropriate framework for cybersecurity culture research? And I would say that it is an open question, this open question is some research gap that I came to through this analysis. And I think it is important to take it into account first because of constant technological development and transformation of digital society we live in. And second, because of potential future crises like this pandemic, which really showed us how much is important to develop and to strengthen our cybersecurity culture as a strategy for countering these threats. And in the end, I have one 48 video by Interpol that I would like to share with you as a message which is compatible with this topic. That's it. So wash your cyber hands, and thank you for your attention. Oh, it doesn't work. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Slađana. This is a really good reminder to change our passwords. I'll do that immediately. Thank you so much for this really comprehensive presentation on one side, and I believe creating a promising nexus between cybersecurity, security culture in a more traditional sense, and particularly connecting it with social cognitive theory on a really interesting case of the overwhelming, obviously, COVID-19 pandemic. And with this, I thank once again our presenters, and now I would like to open the floor for comments, suggestions, questions from the audience, both here in the room and also online.
Do we hear one more participant? Hmm? Do we hear one more participant present? No.
Hello, my name is Alexander Vukhalovic. For the first lecture, I have one question. If I understand this slide, Western way of war belong to a previous drone era. My question is, can you say something about Eastern way of war? Thank you.
Well, thank you for your question. It wasn't intended to divide West and East, but that's the term. That's the concept from the war studies literature. The Western way of war is fighting war, by leaning on advanced technologies, on precise killing, targeted killing, to decrease human force. That's the point. So killing at distance. And so maybe I should avoid it. I should have avoided, putting that term in my presentation, because it's very short. And but thank you. That's it.
Okay. I had to invent my new question because this gentleman, for me, just asked exactly what I had in mind to ask you. But you showed us some footage from YouTube. I wanted to ask, there are other sources from where you can get some footage, and do you trust the sources? Can you rely on the sources, or there is the risk that the footage released contributes to create some kind of propaganda, so to speak, or a kind of vision of war that is in some way apparently free, but actually guided in some sense. And for the last speaker, I wanted to ask, just a curiosity, is there a specific reason for which you adopted the social cognitive paradigm instead of others?
Yeah. All right.
Okay.
I will explain. It's okay.
Thank you.
Maybe we can collect one more question, and then we'll have a round of responses. Yeah.
My question was, in addition to what was just asked, also the question about what sort of protection currently is there for the rights, first of all, of the soldiers who go under a different sort of protection, because this is a new infringement of human dignity, if you like. And so what sort of reflections have been put there? It's also infringement of privacy, for sure. And finally, my last question is about what do you think the effects are of these sorts of videos on the viewer rather than the general viewer? And I'm also curious, who puts which are the main sources of these videos?
Okay, well, because both questions, thank you very much, and very, very reasonable questions of sources. And I think that I put in my presentation. So now almost every institution has its own YouTube channel. So Ukrainian armed forces Russian armed forces, even particular military units has their own, YouTube channel. I used YouTube channels of mainstream media, both Ukrainian, Russian, European, American, global, and there is a new rising phenomenon of so-called military bloggers or MIL bloggers, but that's actually it's a limited number. It's huge number, but it's limited number, and all those videos are sharing. They share each other. And
so, may I just? It wasn't your sources that I was worried about. I was the original. Is this the various armies, or is this private? Who produces
those videos are operational. I mean, those videos are combat imagery, as you could. I mean, I really, because of short time, I couldn't play all those clips. So I just my are screenshots. I just wanted to emphasize those moments. But for instance, you can see, for instance, there is a video of let's say 5 minutes long video of a drone that chase after a soldier, who probably is lost, got lost, and he's hovering after him. But I think that the problem with those commercial drones that I mean, all drones produce sounds, but it's not so audible. So the point is that those ground troops are most of time are not aware of drones hovering over them. Even though there are, of course, there's videos in which soldiers they realize and then show middle finger or something like that. There are even let's say comic videos, but I think that here when it comes to the real reliability of sources, my point is, what can you see through drone? So I'm not getting into who is one side, who is the other side, but those are operational footages of battlefield. That's the point. So the point is what can be seen by drones, and why, in my view, drones, there is a potential of drone to be in terminology of critical social theory, another apparatus of domination, because you used to fight as a soldier in any previous war, but you got commands, you got directions, but no one really had idea what you're doing. The only criteria for evaluation is did you get to the target or not? So, I mean, that's the answer to your question. So I know that, but those videos are uncut. I mean, they're uncut. There is no visible editing.
But they are officially released.
Mm-hmm.
They are officially released. They are not. They are not leaked or taken from. No. Yeah. Okay. That's.
I think that the one of these clips have stamp of, for instance, Donetsk Republic or something like that, or the other have the emblem of arms and codes of some Ukraine military unit. So they claim that are official video imagery of their actions.
Just before I give the floor to Slađana to respond to the question, just to maybe have ask additional questions. So building on this, so the interesting thing here also is what is the path of those videos? So they are official. So we have cameras attached, physically attached. to combat drones, and then operated by belligerent parties. But here, so they're serving for propaganda, obviously, use here, because they're they're uploaded. This is interesting, either on official YouTube channels of the armies, but also on different sources. And then what is the pathway? How do they end up on those military blogs?
They share,
whether they share it, whether they have some exclusive footage or not, but definitely quite a very, very interesting notion. But Slađan, perhaps you would like to reflect on why you have chosen the social cognitive theory instead of some other possible theory.
Yeah, but first I have to answer this. First, so social cognitive theory is, of course, broader framework than the reciprocal determinism model, and it is developed by Albert Bandura, a well-known psychologist, in 1986. So the reciprocal determinism model is like a core of this broader theory, and then other author called Dominic Cooper used this model to explore security culture. And that first table was his, and I put it on the presentation, but maybe you couldn't see. It's from 2016, and the last table was mine as a result of my content analysis.
Please, we can have another round of questions.
Thanks. I have two questions. The first one would be for Mr. Korać. So we're talking about uses of technology, right? So in this case, I was just thinking that when it comes to drones being utilized in war, could they have another simultaneous function, for example, when it comes, so while simultaneously scrutinizing soldiers for their performance, let's say, can they also scrutinize them for potential war crimes? Or, for example, potential other ethical and legal transgressions? So I was just, I'm just like, what do you think about that possibility? And the second question is for the second presentation on ransomware. I was wondering, what do you think, what would be the differences when it comes to approaches to these ethical dilemmas between public institutions and private companies? Because they both deal with sensitive data, but they have different implications and they have different, they can have different consequences. So I was just wondering if you could elaborate on that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Do we have any additional questions? Maybe online. If no, then I would perhaps first give the floor to Ivona and Andrea to reflect on the question of the difference between whether the victims of ransom attacks were public or private entities.
Ivona, can you hear us?
Sorry, we are here, just a second.
Perfect. Thank you.
This is Andrea's part of the paper. She's not right here at the moment, but I will try to answer this question. So when it comes to the difference between the, like we said, the private and the public, right?
Yes.
I would say when it comes to from ethical point of view, there are no differences. We have some universal rules, and we have some ethical standards which we need to follow and to apply in any specific situation. So I would say that from ethical point of view, that's my part of this paper. I would say that rules are universal, so there wouldn't be differences between private and public subjects in this question.
Thank you so much. I would also have a couple of legal questions, but then questions, but perhaps we should maybe wait for Andrea.
Yeah, I will call Andrea to come join us again because she could answer you better about the legal questions.
No problem. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Luana, Sergio, perhaps you could reflect on the.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for your comment, because I think it's a very good idea, but I think I'm very, skeptical about, providing those footages as court evidence, because, for instance, those clip with, hitting a soldier having a pool with grenades, I think that probably is act of war crime. That soldier was not in combat. He wasn't a threat to anyone. So that would be very interesting, because all those video clips are uploaded to YouTube. So I have no idea what exactly is the policy of YouTube, but I suspect those are uploaded permanently, or maybe I'm wrong. So that should be very, very, because maybe now it's the good time to download or those, controversial video imagery, and to back up, some kind of database. But this is a good question. The emphasis in my research is more about domination, over its own soldiers, because I think maybe I didn't, because I rushed to fit in time slot, but it reminds me of assembly line and assembly workers who are always surveilled by some camera in some angle, some corner of the factory building. Mm-hmm. And that's why still you have those you have application of those corporate methodology and the business practices. I'm not sure it's good, but it's trend. It has been trend for maybe over 3 decades in public administration as well. But those are different, the public administration and corporate sector, those different, kind of institutions with different purposes. So, but I think there is a parallel, between corporate sector now, in terms of now commander is a kind of manager, because he has a kind of burden to not to cost too much, the military, the ministry, but to get things done efficiently. No, which makes ordinary soldier, working, assembly line worker, like Charlie Chaplin, that famous film. So, and that's why I put, at the last slide, I put those dilemma, to assembly line worker, has enough moral autonomy, because in war, you making decision about other people's lives. So you have, in my view, you have to be autonomous, subject to deal with those moral dilemmas, to shoot someone or not. And individually, 100 meters from you, does he pose a threat or not?
Thank you very much, Sergio. I think that you put a really insightful comparison between apparatus of domination, apparatus of protection, I think, just at the very end of your presentation. But perhaps that was a really also an interesting question regarding the the potential usage of those videos in some future war crime tribunal, which will most likely take place in the future, especially those footages that are the official stand. And then we'll see what kind of evidence will some future tribunal accept during the trials. But to be honest, I don't. Given the development of national legislation and the case law on the national level, I don't see actually any real threat that those evidence will not be used. I'm just looking at our audience whether we have any final comments, suggestions, or questions either here in the room or on Zoom. Once, twice, no. If that is all, then I would just once again would like to thank our presenters, Srđan, Slađana, and Yvonne, Andrea online, and thank you all for your very active participation. And with this, we can close this panel, and then just to inform you that we commence at 4:45, so in let's say 20 minutes. Thank you very much.